Hello, this is Claude, and today I'm doing a quick video about RGBs or LEDs, RGB, and I am not doing a tutorial on how to install them. I'm showing you today the difference between the different RGB strips. All right, you can have standard 12 volt, you can have standard 5 volt, you can have addressable. And so I'm going to talk about the difference and the do's and don'ts with that. So if you're building a PC, a gaming PC, you're spending good money, and you're not so sure about all the headers on your motherboard, which one does what you can plug to what, this is what I'm going to talk about right now. The reason why I'm doing this video is because I did a video about a Thermaltake RGB fan hub that had addressable RGB, and the question that I got from the viewers would show me that there's a need for that video. Alright, so I'm talking about how they work, and if you want to have a little tutorial on how to solder the RGB strips, change the cables if you don't have the right ends on the RGB strip you have, and you want to put something else, more like this, how to solder that, put H-string tube, let me know in the comments below, and I might do that if there's enough people asking for it. But this is the subject today is what they are and the difference between the different lights and the headers in the motherboard. And I'm going to show some examples on the motherboard. Got a full-time job, so I'm not going to do a lot of editing. So I'm doing my low-tech solution with that printout of a PowerPoint that I prepared. All right. So basically, the types of RGB LED strips are twofold. Right. You've got the standard RGB LED strips like this one right here. And you've got the addressable, RGBs, and this is an addressable 5 volt addressable RGB, and I'm going to talk about the difference right now. So, what it does, the difference between the two is the standard RGB. This is a 5 volt standard, 12 volts. So you can have either 5 volts or 12 volts. But the pinout is you got 4 pins or 5 pins on the motherboard. All right. One pin is the voltage. It's going to be either 5 volt or 12 volt. You're going to have green, red, blue, and sometimes you might have the fifth one, which is white, because white basically is 100% of green, red, and blue, and it gives kind of a pinkish hue, and it's not a great white. So there's also one that has another LED that is just white. So it's the fifth pin there. Some strips have that. All right. So what I say below is that the green, red, blue, and the white act like ground. And I'm going to show what it does, because basically you've got power. Here's my red cable, is the 12 volts going in, and then it comes back to the ground. All right, and I'm going to and that closes the circuit. Now I'm on the green pin, so that's what it does. That I'm going to show you in a second. I'll show you right now. So this is what I say about when it does the ground is, if you look at the strip, whoop, I'm on 12 volt. I've got a DC power supply right there, and it's at 12 volt right now. So if you look at this here, the strip says it's a little. I'm going to show you a little closer. If it's gonna try to zoom on the text here. So I'm going to go here. So if you look at here, it says here it's got the whoop. That's reverse. There you go. It says voltage, the top one. You got blue, you got red, and you've got green. The line in the middle is where you can cut the strip. If you want to cut to length, you can only cut where it tells you where the contacts are, right? So it tells you clearly. You can see there's little pairs of scissors. So you cannot cut anywhere in the middle, because the circuit needs to go all the way to and then come back, all right, to the ground. If you cut it, it's not going to come back. So that's what it is, all right? And you've got also the little resistors for the diodes. LED is a light emitting diodes. It's a diode that emits lights. So so you need to have resistors, or else you're just going to kill this thing here. All right. So that's what it is. So let me show you what I'm talking about when it says that it does ground. All right. The green, the red, blue, and green make ground. So I'm going to connect to the 12 volt on my cable here in my power supply. Red is the voltage. All right. So I'm going to connect this pin to here. And I'm going to connect the ground, the ground, return to the green one, the farthest one, the one on top. So that's going to be green. So it connects the loop. So that's what I'm saying. It does connect the circuit. So basically the 12 volts go through the circuit, then comes back, and then to the ground. The ground closes the circuit, hence light goes up. All right? That's what it does when I say it acts like a ground. So this is a 12 volt standard strip. Okay? So on the other side, and I'm going to talk about right now about the voltages, all right? If you've got 12 volt, right now I've got my power supply supplying me 12 volts. Now this is a 5 volt standard strip as well. If you can see here, they're the same thing, the voltage on top. You got blue, red, and green. You can see that. You see the cut lines as well, right? Here you can cut it actually closer together, right? So so that is 5 volt, right? When you buy it, it says on the package, but right now it doesn't say it's 5 volt on it. Sometimes it does. It says on the tape inside that it's 5 volt. No, it doesn't. But that's a 5 volt. That's why I wrote it here. It's 5 volt because I've got multiple reels, so I don't want to screw it up. It says 5 volt. So if you put your 5 volt on a 12 volt RGB, on the RGB header in the motherboard, 12 volts, and you put your 5 volt RGB strip, you put too much current, too much power in there, too much voltage in there. It's gonna burn. You're gonna fry your RGB strip. But now I've got 12 volt. I'm not gonna connect it, but I'm gonna reduce my power supply to 5 volts. And there you go. I'm gonna take it at 5. I'm at 5.2. There you go. It should be fine. All right. The voltage is on top. All right. The first pin on the top, and I'm gonna put my thing on the green. Oh, it says green here. It says I put the pin on green. It says G for green below, and it lights up blue. So this is why on the controllers, this brings a good point. When you put your controller, all these things come with the controller. And this is the one that came with it. It's brand new. So usually you do a couple of functions, like you put it off, and then you put smooth, and then you click 3 things, and it just circle. You can Google that. I don't have it now, but because these things are done like this, they're not always perfect. But you can just cycle on this. So red's gonna give you red. So you cycle until you get the right combination. Just a little tip here. All the controls can do that. Usually it's gonna be in your instructions how to cycle through that. But here, anyway, it's supposed to be the green, but it's the blue. Now I've got right now the red, and here I'm gonna have the green. If I could put it, there you go. All right, so that's what it is. So that's 5 volt. I'm shooting 5 volt to it. All right. So if you put 12 volt header in a 5 volt strip in a 12 volt header, you're gonna fry it. Don't do that. But if you do the other way around, you've got a 12 volt strip, and now I'm on 5 volt with my power supply. And the voltage is the one in the bottom, the pin in the bottom. I'm going to put that. I've got 5 volt into a 12 volt. Let's see what happens. Nothing's going to fry because you're putting under voltage to it. All right. So I'm going to start increasing the voltage, and it starts lighting up at about 5 point. You see, right now I'm at 6 volts. So it's just like a dimmer. All right. So you're going to take it all the way down to 12 volts, and as you increase the voltage, now I'm at 9. As you increase the voltage, you're just going to increase the intensity of that, all right? Now I'm at 12 volts. So that is it for the standard, RGB strips, all right? So let's talk about the addressable RGB strips. And you're going to see the pinout is completely different. So I'm going to show you, hopefully it's going to focus in the right place. All right. So you can see the pinout is completely different. It's a 3-pin thing. You got the voltage. On top, you've got the ground on top, right here. And here, you've got data. And if you see on the strip itself, it says DO, because that's the end. The current goes like this, right? So you've got data out, and here, data in, because it goes out of that part, goes in there. And then it goes out of it there, and it goes in the next one, all right? That's what it is, all right? DODI, that's what it means. So this is the addressable, what it looks like. It's completely different, all right? So what it does is that an addressable, you also have either 5 volts or 12 volts. The pinout is basically on the motherboard, you're going to have 4-pin headers, all right? So, but you're going to have 3 that have the pin and 1 that's blank, because they all come the same usually, and 1 is going to be blank. The third one is usually the blank one. So that's what it is. The first pin usually is the voltage, all right, coming out of your motherboard, because the motherboard supplies the voltage. So usually you're going to have V out here, the voltage out. Out of the pin goes into your RGB strip, right? So that's the voltage, 5 volt or 12 volt, the data, and blank, and the ground, all right? On this specific model here, so you've got the voltage is coming into the red, all right? You've got the ground, which is going to be the black, all right? So you're going to have the voltage red, the ground is the black, and the one in the middle, the green cable, is the data, okay? So you see here, that's a connector. That's a different connector that I have. I just bought the reel if I wouldn't be connecting that to a motherboard, you just get one of these things that you buy from Amazon or whatever store you buy from, electronic store. Micro Center in the States, they do have that. So basically you just cut this, and then you make sure to connect the right cable, cut that, solder, put a little heat shrink tubing, and then you make sure that you put the voltage, and here it would be right here. On these connectors, I'm going to show you as well. On these connectors, one thing that I don't know if you'll be able to see, if it's going to make I'm going to remove that. The little arrow is where the voltage is coming out. So that's the voltage, all right? So voltage out is the one with the little arrow, okay? So basically here, the black cable would go on the red. Let me see the pinout here. Go on the red. The black would go on the red here, and after the data would be the green on the second one, green to green. The blank, so this one would be chopped off, nothing coming out of there, and the ground would be the black cable here would go to the blue here to the ground, and then you can just solder it and then plug it into the header, right? So like I said, if you want to see a video on how to do it and doing it, I can do that. Let me know in the comments. So that's what it is. The way it works is completely different, all right? Like I said, on the standard RGB strips, it's just regular contact. You got the voltage in, and then you do the ground with that. The controller does the grounding here. This how the colors come in, because you got the voltage, you got the ground, and you've got the data. It's a function of pulse width modulation. It calculates the wavelength. You've got the little chip somewhere on the motherboard probably, and that it calculates the width of the wavelength, and that's what gives the color in the combination. That's how it works, all right? So let me go to the next step, the general rules of thumb for RGB. All right, so regardless of the RGB style that you have, you cannot mix and match addressable with standard on the headers on the motherboard, because they're different pinouts. I just showed you the pinouts, they're different. All right, so you have to match the voltage of your RGB strip or your device, such as a fan hub. You have to match that to the voltage on the header on the motherboard. So a header for 12 volts, you have to connect 12 volt hub or a 12 volt RGB strip. Okay, so you cannot mix and match. As I said, if you put a 12 volt RGB strip on a 5 volt header, no problem. But the other way around, you're going to fry something, right? So thing that I see, but all the questions that I get, read the motherboard manual. All the RGB header types, they're all specified. I'm going to show you some, but you need to look at that. All right, pay attention to the amps as well. All right, the manual tells you how many lights you can put. It's going to tell you don't put no more than 1 meter, no more than 60 LEDs. This is the LEDs, the light. So you have to look at that. All right. So if you put too many, you're going to go above the amperage, and then you're gonna fry your header on your motherboard. Like I said, the arrow on the RGB cable. I was trying to show that to you here. Not going to do it, but the arrow shows you where the voltage is, the voltage pin. All right. So I've talked about that. Now let's see some motherboards, all right, and see what I talked about when I talked about the the headers and the manuals. This is the Prime X299 motherboard from Asus. That's the one that I have, for my i9-7900X. So basically it tells you, this is the photo in the manual. I just cropped this information from the manual. But basically it tells you where the headers are on the motherboard. And it tells you they've got a couple of headers. These are standard 12 volt headers. Tell you 12 volt, the pinout. GRB, it tells you in there. And then the same thing, it tells you what the pinout is. All right. So read the manual. All right. And also below deck somewhere, there's some, addressable headers. So basically what it does, it's going to tell you what the header is for. And it tells you right here, 5 volt, data, and ground. The third pin is the empty one, just like I said. But it tells you right here. So people send me emails or they send me comments on my videos. Oh, can I put the 5? Just read the manual. The information is in the manual. All right. So that's what it is. And I'm not going to go through all the other ones, because I've got one from Aorus that's interesting. That's not Asus. For AMD, same thing, standard 12 volt headers. And I've got the ASRock. It's got a couple of them as well, addressable and standard. But I'm going to show you one from a Z390 from Aorus for the 9th gen Intel chips. I like that because it's got addressable RGB and it's got standard RGB strips, and it's got also the ability to switch from 5 volt to 12 volts on the addressable RGB. So this is the diagram that I took from the website, and I'm going to show it shows you where the headers are for the standard strips. and it tells you it's clearly 12 volts GRB. All right, this is the strips that they are, and they tell you what they are. All right, but I'm going to show you something else on the addressable ones. That motherboard's got everything: 2 standard ones and 2 addressable. And then on the addressable RGB, and it's got the D-LED right here. It's got D-LED right here. D-LED, and it's got a little switch here with the, with a little jumper to switch from 5 volt to 12 volt. If you use the jumper here, if you go from pin 1 and 2 of the jumper, it's 5 volt by default. Most everything I've seen addressable is 5 volts. And if you put the jumper in pin 2 and 3, it becomes 12 volts on the addressable. All right, so that's pretty neat. And like I said, it tells you again what the voltage are, the pin out of the pins, and also it shows you again to put the voltage 1 where the arrow is as well on the pin number 1. Pin number 1 is the voltage. Okay, so that's basically what it is. And yeah, so basically, if you match the header style with the header with the LED strip, and you match the voltage, you won't have any problem. All right. So these are the 2 different types of RGB LED strips, and I hope that this video clarified some of your inquiries. Obviously, if you're watching, because you had some inquiries. If you like the content, if it helped you, let me know in the comments, and let me know by liking the video. And like I said initially, if you want to see how to do the soldering, if you get some strip there, you want to solder stuff differently, if you have any interest on seeing that, let me know in the comments, and I will be glad to oblige if there is enough requests. All right, thanks for watching my video, and I'll see you at the next one.